All right. It's alive. Debunking professionalism, one show at a time. That means as little effort as possible. Um, and I'm good at putting forth as little effort as possible. So uh, maybe you guys are overachievers. Go for it. I'm tired and old. Okay, just talk.
I guess I could start it by saying I got a new book deal in the works with the Nihilism Revised.
Yeah.
Yep, it's
Yeah,
a
you told me
little
about that.
like a
Talk a little about the book.
yeah. It's not a completely done deal yet, but it's a beach comedy trip novella. It's one I'm pretty happy with.
I feel like I need to turn. I feel like I need to. I wonder if it's my volume that's a little hot. I don't know. Try now.
Does
What
it
do you
sound
mean,
okay?
try?
Yeah, it's fine now. I think. Yeah, that's. See, that's. I don't find myself caring about like things like show prep and oh no dead air, and things like that anymore. I just kind of like to be in the spontaneous moment. Um, so yeah, what were we talking about?
Zachary was telling us about his new book with Nihilism Revised.
Yeah, it's current title is Dinosaurs and Potted Plants.
He
Cool.
said it was
This is your first book with Nihilism Revised?
Yeah, hopefully first book. No contract or anything yet, but
Okay.
an acceptance basically.
Well, you've published with them a bunch, right?
well, I've had one short. I was in one of their anthologies, and I have a short story collection through them. And I can say that I've read a bunch of their books, and I think they're doing very great work. I think SC Burke is really good at designing books, and he's very passionate about what he does. So I'm very happy to
Yeah,
work with them.
I really like how they don't like try to steal the limelight like places like I'm trying to think of some names. They're kind of just happy staying in the background, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
Can y'all hear me?
he's it's they're very prolific, but I guess they don't really push themselves to the forefront. They're very he's very concerned about keeping the books themselves front and center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of like underground sensibilities instead of like trying to be super professional and getting into publishing cabals and whatnot.
Yeah, I had my fill of that without ever actually publishing all that much. It's like I became obsessed with courting uh, this publisher and without ever actually delivering a full manuscript, and it became really. It got really bad. I almost felt like I was in a relationship with a woman. It was really bad. Do not surrender. Number one, don't ever surrender your free speech before you've signed a contract, and don't surrender it afterward if you can help it. But also, don't try so hard to woo a girl, a publisher, uh, an investor, anybody, that you lose your identity in the process, because that's what it became. No wonder I could never finish that manuscript. I was so busy podcasting and trying to win the affections of a publisher. And I know that sounds weird, but it's the truth. I became
I
obsessed.
had that problem when I was a teenager.
Did you?
That yeah, like I would write a lot and send a lot, probably stupidly, like bug editors and everything like that. But I've kind of stopped now. Like I just don't really care, and I've made the decision. I'm happy self-publishing. I've not had to do it yet, but I mean, once the day comes when I don't get an acceptance, it's like I'm immediately going to that because I mean it's pointless not to these days.
So you've been writing since you were a teenager?
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah.
Anytime there's a publisher author relationship that's like involves everyone at the publisher and it becomes a big social type thing, it's always turned sour for me.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm just trying to doctor the volume to a reasonable level. So, all right, try and say something.
Is it my something?
Well, I don't know if you need to adjust it now. I may have fixed it on my end. So talk.
Testing?
Okay, it's fine now.
Test.
It's fine. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
this is
yeah,
why it's called debunking professionalism. We have none of that.
exactly. I'm totally out of it and drugged out of my gourd, and I like it. So, um, yeah, I spent so much time trying to show my best side that like I forgot how to just be myself. And that's another thing is that I besides, forgetting how to write almost because I was so busy trying to present myself as a writer, I also muted the part of my brain that knew I was a conservative, you know? And
You could go
so,
further and say that by trying to get so many societal riches, it just adversely affected your soul.
well, yeah, I turned the conservative part of my brain off, and tried to be this like almost libertarian, where I convinced myself that I was still edgy, but no, man, and I don't intend to make the whole show about this, but since we're on the topic, I, I, the more I saw their liberal extremism come out, which
Mixed with
I guess,
nihilism.
huh?
Mixed with nihilism, they're all kind of like that.
Yeah, it really turned me off, and so I thought, well, I mean, I'm barely seeing my family, and I live in under their roof, and well, who am I making these sacrifices for? They don't care. I've never, produced anything of merit to them, So really, I'm just torturing myself, and then those who were still following would see me go overboard and flirt with the alt right, even though anyone of who matters in the alt right doesn't even know who I am, and I never even came close to winning them over. And I don't really care to this day about being associated with the alt right, but the fact is that none of them know my name. I almost secured an interview with Richard Spencer, but he told me that my audience was nearly non-existent, so he wouldn't do
Yeah,
Who is he again?
it. He's the part
exactly.
Richard Spencer is the part of the alt right that you really do need to watch out for. Hang on,
Yeah,
hang
he was kind of in the news recently because Milo Yiannopoulos leaked a recording of him
Yeah, I've
screaming
got it.
about how he rules the world, about how octoroons were enslaved by his ancestors and all of that. It's pretty funny to listen to. You should track it down.
Yeah, I've got the audio here somewhere. Hang on.
Well, that'll put us in good graces with YouTube when we play that.
You gonna what now?
I said that'll put us in good graces with YouTube when they play that. But
Yeah,
it's
well,
been
I
all
mean,
over, so
my source is another YouTube video, so hopefully.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, it won't win me any friends. But hey, what more can they do to me? I'm probably not even turning up in searches. Um,
Yeah, I think the funniest part about that rant is he used the term octoroons because apparently he didn't want to use the N word. I guess.
hmm.
Octoroon is someone who's like 1/8 black. I don't know what he was on with that.
What is it? Is it 4/8 black? Is that what you said?
Well, octoroon, I think it's someone who's 1/8 black or something like that, and it's like an old term.
So, like, you have black in your family line somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those words from the days when the when people really cared about that, like how much percentage of black you had in your family.
Yeah. That's another thing is that the thing is that these people are so obsessed with white that they end up just as bad as the social justice warriors, the heretics. Um, and like I said, I'm not triggered by the alt right, or anything, but I realize that they're so isolationist that that even their own they won't accept unless you are absolutely committed to you know getting shekels while making fun of said shekels, or quote unquote super chats, uh, and donations of all sorts. You got to be willing to make money off YouTube, but also make fun of it, like and blame it on the Jewish somehow. And I just didn't get that whole thing. You know, I mean, when you start pointing out the Jewish privilege, which is it's there, I would say in legal, lawyer circles as well as Hollywood and such. But the fact is, if you by pointing that out, you're just as bad as the liberals pointing out white privilege, you know. Um, and I would chalk it up to Jewish exceptionalism that they were able to corner entertainment and um, you know legal representation, lawyers, the lawyer profession. This might be the Richard Spencer audio here. All I get is a bunch of assholes giving their opinions on it. That's not what I want. I want the actual audio. I don't give a shit what everybody's opinion is on it.
Yeah, I've had that problem a lot. You'll type up something and you get like 20 CNN clips.
Yeah. Here we go. This is by the way, this is after Unite the Right, which I covered about 2 years ago. Now it's been, I guess, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm completely out of the loop on like everything being discussed.
Well, you don't remember? Do you remember me interviewing that based Southern Belle girl?
Yeah, I remember that episode. That's
Yeah.
about it. Is this Richard Spencer like just a spokesperson or an author or something?
He's generally regarded as the one who coined the term alt right, which is not really. I think, ironically, it was a Jewish conservative scholar who coined the term, and it originally just meant like right wingers who were opposed to the neocon consensus of the Bush administration. But Richard Spencer took it as like a term for um, his sort of white nationalist brand of conservatism. It's sort of a modern George Lincoln Rockwell kind of conservatism.
Yeah. And the question that's posed to Richard Spencer over and over is, if you were to ever gain a foothold in politics, a major foothold, and realize your dreams, how would you extract these undesirables and minorities that you claim you don't want in your nationalist ethno state? How would you remove them from the country? See, and he would always kind of dodge and sidestep. Well, I mean, we kind of know now, and this kind of sheds more light on that, on how he speaks when he's not fluffing himself up for the cameras, right? So here we go. Here it is, and this is not me, turning on a dime here. This is just me going back to being sane and still hating the SJWs and extremist liberal types, but also taking the right with a grain of salt. This is me rediscovering equilibrium, because I have found peace of mind. So, and now this has come out. I can kind of see where I went wrong and where I was right, and that's good. It's good to balance things out. Not that I think that centrists win the day either, but anyway, here we go. Here is Richard Spencer, as most already knew him to be. Can you hear okay?
I can hear it okay.
All right.
Is this dude real? Like, it doesn't seem real.
You know what it is? He almost sounds like a villain out of like a Revenge of the Nerds movie here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be like a surprise to anyone that he goes on rants about K words, probably after 1.5 drinks in private.
Notice how he held back with black people, but he didn't hold back with Jews. Huh? I mean, think about that.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder what makes him reach for the word octoroons. Does he really have this like? Because apparently, like his family did apparently own fields at some point, and apparently still does. So I kind of wonder why he just reaches for the word octoroons. Does he really think he's like some kind of southern aristocrat or something? He definitely sounds like he's got an overinflated sense of importance, but he's a wasp.
I would think more of a European, more of a European sensibility, right?
Yeah, because I know that he's a wasp.
A what?
He's a wasp. He's not southern. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Oh yeah, okay. I always wondered what that stood for. Duh. So this is after Unite the Right, and I will go ahead and say, based on the testimony proffered by Bass Southern Belle on my old Quiet Place shows, that yeah, Antifa did kind of stir things up and bring them to that level. And they were throwing, containers with quick drying concrete in them, and things like that. And so they sprayed, they baked Alaska in the eyes. He almost went blind. I mean, bear maced him or something, and there may have been like some kind of acid in there too, or that may have been, the all right, propaganda line as far as that goes. But I mean, there's no question they've thrown fox piss or some kind of animal urine on Lauren Southern, which, I mean, of all the people to throw things at on that side, Lauren Southern, man, I mean, she's not that extreme. She's, I think she's actually got a balanced look at it, at things. Yeah, it's just this culture war, man. I would rather have peace of mind every day than to go around pretending any further like I'm in the middle of this culture war, which I acknowledge exists. But, I just want to be able to wake up every day, not without, my neck and face, red from anxiety. I would rather let the politicians politic and the activists activize or activist. And I would rather just go to my shitty job and then come home and either be creative or zone out for a few hours before I go to sleep to do it all over again. I just, I guess I'm just not, the activist type. And I will let my voting speak for me next November, so. And
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about the impeachment ceremony, but or not ceremony, but inquiry or whatever, because Trump's a big boy and he knew what he was getting into when he ran, and so I personally think that what we're hearing coming out of those talks, it's a dog and pony show run by the Democrats, but you know, um, he's responsible for his words and actions at the end of the day, and he does spend too much time on Twitter. So I hope he doesn't get impeached, but I'm not going to lose sleep if he does. I'll focus on voting for the next best nominee if it comes down to it. If he does get to run again, I'll vote for him again. But it's I can't worry myself sick about it anymore. What will be to some degree, but I'll continue. Go ahead.
It's kind of interesting that pretty much all the activists you've mentioned so far, except for I don't know if Base Southern Belle is still doing anything, but all of them have kind of burned out. Baked Alaska burned out and is kind of a lol cow now. Lauren Southern, she's no longer doing it, and there are rumors that she was never really into it. And Richard Spencer.
You mean she was a thought, basically, right?
There's well, not necessarily a thought, part of that, partially, but part of it is that she was sort of a pretty face for others' opinions. I don't know how true that is, but
could she have been propped up by somebody behind the scenes, you think?
Yeah, there's kind of rumors around that. I don't know if that's the case, because I do know that some more moderate people who were friends with her seemed to say that she was somewhat sincere in her opinions. But she was doing things like going overseas and shooting what was it, a flare gun over a migrant boat or something like that, which is really fucking stupid.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I do remember that. Supposedly they were bringing refugees over on that or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now, what purpose did the flare serve? I can't remember.
I don't know. I think the way she justified it was so that the guard or military or whatever could look at it, but a lot of people are saying that it was done to intimidate them. I really don't know that much about it.
Well, she was with some guy who was kind of like her all-around tour guide, who was directing her what to do. She was with some group or something, and she kind of fell in with them, is the way I understood it, right?
She was with Rebel Media, wasn't she?
Okay, yeah. And isn't Rebel Media run by a Canadian, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, Rebel Media is Canadian.
How were there? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
It's run by, I think his name is Ira Levitt or something like that. He's a very pro-Israeli kind of conservative Jew.
But he's Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Where do his interests lie in American politics then?
Well, Lauren Southern was Canadian.
Was she?
Yeah.
Man, I'm way out of the loop. Okay, what about Gavin? What's his face?
Gavin McInnes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he Canadian too?
Well, he was originally from Canada, but he moved to the States.
This is an odd trend.
and like Sargon of Akkad is always going on about American politics. What purpose does it serve him to do so? He's more worried about that than his own politics. It's weird. It's weird how people all over the world are obsessed with American politics instead of their own.
Well, one, American hegemony, and two, from what I've seen in Sargon's latest videos, he has been, pretty fixated on the UK election.
Good. Yeah. Boy, yeah, they've got some major shit storms ahead of them with this whole Brexit. What's going on with that?
I've stopped paying attention to it. It's confusing. I just don't really care enough about it, but I don't know. It's like at one point I remember reading that it worked, and then later seeing that it didn't work and that they were turning it back. And at that point I just lost interest because it doesn't really affect me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the long and short of it is they voted to basically get out of the European Union, and so they're supposed to get out of the European Union. The problem is they haven't negotiated a deal to actually get out of it. They tried to do a no deal, and that fell through. And there's a bunch who still are trying to keep Britain in the European Union. So it's basically just a clusterfuck.
I'll bet 20 years from now they will still be trying to clean up this mess on both sides.
The only mess I'm seriously disturbed about political wise is the last was it the Supreme Court thing on the lawsuit against Remington Arms Company.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
what's going on with that?
Basically, it was the I'm not sure if it's the Sandy Hook family per se, but someone it may have been, but someone they're basically wanting to sue the gun manufacturer, and it went to the Supreme Court, and everyone was thinking that they would like overturn it or whatever, but they didn't, which is kind of surprising. But I don't know. It's all. Everyone thought that they would overturn it because there was some law saying that you can't sue some like a company for some person misusing their product and causing you harm, but somehow they did, and I didn't really understand how they did, but it was some kind of weird loophole.
Yeah, that's a little worrisome. The idea that you can sue a gun company for someone shooting you. That's, but I have a feeling that they aren't going to win the lawsuit. Uh, I can't imagine like any rational judge like granting that.
So if a car runs you down and you survive, can you sue Ford?
In theory, you could sue if it was due to a defect in the car, but if it's just someone like being a bad driver, then no.
If someone hits you with a golf club, can you sue Dunlop?
I would assume you technically shouldn't, but with that ruling, apparently now you can. I guess it doesn't guarantee that you'll actually win, but it it is worrisome that they can just bring
So
that
it set a
lawsuit.
precedent then.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of. I mean, not that they've won because they haven't yet, but people were just surprised that the case was allowed to go forward. Like no one thought it would. But
On the other hand, guns to some degree are engineered to harm. There is that. If the plaintiff, if their legal defense wanted to argue that, right?
Right, that's true though.
A car or a golf club is not built to harm in the same way a gun is, but that doesn't matter to the thousands of people who will exploit this now if it is a precedent.
Right, though I assume if they do take it to court and lose, then that's going to just set another precedent where, well, okay, you can do it, but they're not going to grant it.
Richard, what do you think about this?
That's how the fucking world works. We're fucking cow.
Oh, and there you have it. That's how the world fucking works.
Yeah, Richard Spencer has a very it's like even the people who work with him, like Andy Nowicki, have said that he has a very inflated sense of self-importance.
Do you know that one guy that has the really weird name that fell in with that whole thing, and he was this big Greek proponent. He believed that he had like a Greek god inside of him or something. Do you know who I'm talking about? What the hell is that guy?
The dude with the long hair.
Oh.
I'm not sure if he has long hair now or not, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Augustus Invictus?
Yes, that's exactly who. Have you heard what about his past?
Yeah, he used to be a Satanist, I think.
He
Yeah, he's
ritualistically murdered animals. He admitted to killing a goat and bleeding it. Yeah.
yeah, he was basically like the Holly was like I assume like a Hollywood Satanist who did shit like that, and for reasons I cannot fathom, he tried running on the libertarian ticket, even though he is basically a neo-fascist.
Yeah. Dude was all kinds of crazy, and he was running for senator or something, yeah, or legislator or something, yeah.
In Florida, of course.
Yeah, there was another Satanist that ran there, I believe, named Jonathan Sharkey,
I
who
haven't heard
also
of him.
happened to be an expert swordsman, I think.
Yeah, I haven't heard of him.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that either.
I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves.
So how goes it, Ben?
It's going pretty good. Had a pretty good weekend. How was yours?
Definitely pretty good. Learned how to play chess.
Oh, okay. What got you to start learning that?
My girlfriend's father, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've known how to play chess for a while, but I'm really terrible at it.
It's pretty tough, but
Yeah, yeah. I have problems with thinking ahead. I generally just go on impulse and I don't strategize. I just don't
yeah,
know how to
no.
strategize when I'm playing it, and I end up winning by sheer luck.
See, I don't even wind up winning. But I just learned the other day, so I will improve.
Yeah, a cousin of mine got really into it. He like played it online all the time and got really good at it.
Yeah, I'm starting to practice that way. There was something I was going to bring up that was actually related to the topic at hand and not chess, but blanking on it. There
Yeah,
just seems to be so many of these kind of odd political icons who become internet celebrities, and they just kind of come out of the woodwork, and they're all either super strange, then they burn out. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's become too much of a theatrical thing.
yeah. I think that's at least partially because of Trump. Uh, I mean, this is what when Trump ran. It wasn't the first time he ran. But nobody took him seriously for a while. Um, it's probably a mixture of factors that really got him elected. Not the least of which he was running against Hillary.
Yeah, it may be egocentric, but I don't know if pity is the right word, but I kind of pity people who just completely stay in the loop 24/7 as far as all this kind of like, I guess you say alt politics goes, because I mean it's never anyone that has any I guess you'd say power outside of just being internet celebrities, but it seems like you could just stay into it all day, and it's, I don't know, I feel it's not necessarily psychic manipulation, but it's just people constantly running away from themselves and I guess filling the void with politics, which was me for like maybe part of a year, but I'm kind of like Jeremy. I got out of it like pretty quickly.
Yeah, I assume it has to be very soul sucking to be um, paying attention to that all the time, especially like earning money from it and having constant attention on you from it, like the way people like Baked Alaska did.
Yeah,
It's like no wonder that dude lost his mind.
yeah. The only cool, in my opinion, that I stuck with for any period of time was Jim Goad, because I feel he actually. Now I don't agree with him on everything. I think he is far too logic minded, which I mean works for what he's doing. But I feel that you get to a point where his thinking kind of just stops and there's a brick wall, which is
What was
fine.
that?
He's just
Well, what was that book he wrote? SJWs are the new church ladies.
Yeah,
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Love it, love it. The dude is a prophet of our time. He's preaching the gospel of our times, or our side anyway. My side, and but man, he gets shit from some conservative circles even.
I don't really get why, because
he's a boomer. Because this is another problem that I have with conservatives, is that all these Generation Z conservatives are constantly down in the boomers. Without the boomers, they don't have shit. They won't realize this until all the boomers are gone, though.
Well, that
It's
goes back to
boomers.
they're just little internet celebrities
Yeah,
living off their.
once it's all the boomers who are raising this generation's kids.
Yeah,
you know that, right? I see it everywhere I go.
Oh no, yeah, I know. It's the same everywhere.
They're raising the
horrible.
grandkids because their own kids won't.
Yeah, I mean, I probably don't need to talk about that, but yeah, it's depressing. But it goes back to the whole thing. These people live on the internet and create, I guess, what would you say, sub-political cultures. It's just strange, but.
And another thing I hate about both sides is how they have to invent their own slang. And it's not enough that they invent their own slang. They have to keep reinventing it so that they can keep certain people on their toes and unfamiliar, out of their little cliques.
Yeah.
Now we've got this little subgroup run by this dude, Nick Fuentes, and they're called Groypers. I don't even know what the fuck a Groyper is. It sounds like a throat affliction. I mean, and they're going and disrupting this guy, Charlie Kirk, at all his speeches. And I don't know first thing about Charlie Kirk, but to go around calling yourself a Groyper, I mean, it sounds like a 1980s full moon horror picture on Cinemax. I mean, Groypers. What is a Groyper?
A Groyper is something that is essentially very annoying.
Well, from what I understood, Groyper originally referred to the sort of smug Pepe avatars that you see around, like with the folded hands. And then they just kind of made that into like a symbol of like the sort of alt-right conservatives.
Does anyone else get the feeling that these people in these groups aren't really growing intellectually as much as they are just trying to push out there into the world and just say something and be seen? Because that's what turns me off about it. I'm never seeing anything that engages my mind. It's just 100% theatrics. It's annoying.
Well, for me, from the beginning, Nick Fuentes always came off to me like a little kid wearing his dad's clothes.
He does look like he's not fully grown into him, doesn't he?
Heck, let's go after everyone, even a lot of I've had the same thought about modern super conservatives. I mean, they're always like, I know this because I'm an accounting major, but they'll be accounting majors, and they've never done any type of blue collar work, but they all dress like farmers.
Yeah, that's a kind of a thing with them, is they try to pretend they're trying to like pander to that base when they are not part of it.
Yeah, it just seems like everyone's pandering to some base these days, be it internet celebrities or just normal people you see. But I don't know. To me, it's depressing. What do y'all think about it? Or do you even know what I'm talking about? Or like,
I don't know too many accounting. I don't know too many accountants or accounting majors.
I just meant like college students, basically.
Yeah, I just tend to avoid almost all of them, except for you. I mean,
it kind of seems to be like a mix of things. Like, I haven't seen it. Like, I'm sure there are some who like dress like that just to try to pander to the to that base, but most of like the young conservatives I see are either trying to be Charlie Kirk types, where they're it's basically trying to LARP as boomer Republicans, or there are people like Nick Fuentes who are basically like being like these trolly Richard Spencer types. And I expect, I don't expect Nick Fuentes to last long in those circles because, his last name is Fuentes.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Um, all it's gonna take, all it takes is one soundbite for you to be ruined in both your personal and professional life, and that is wrong in any culture, if you ask me.
Right.
I completely agree.
Yeah, in some sense, with someone like Richard Spencer, like that, coming out on him is just the icing on the cake. Like anyone who's paid attention to him knows has known that he's basically, uh, I hate using the term, but a white supremacist. He's definitely like he's talked about like ethnic cleansing, peaceful ethnic cleansing, but ethnic cleansing nonetheless. And
You
he's
know,
been pretty open about the fact that he goes to like free speech events, but he doesn't believe in it. He just believes in it, and to the extent he can co-opt it to put out his message.
that's interesting. I remember when that girl who's, I don't know if she's half Asian or what, roaming millennial, she interviewed him and she took so much shit, even though she's more based than liberal herself. But she got flack for interviewing him, and she said she would have asked even more questions if she'd had it to do over again. And I think that is awesome. I don't think that we should be running from extreme voices. Um,
No, I kind of feel like they're being amplified and given more importance than they used to. Because things like Klansmen, skinheads, whatever, they've been around forever. Um, like I recall there was a thing where a celebrity was surprised there was a Klan rally in something like I don't know, it was like Ohio or Indiana or something like that. When they've been having those for years, it's just now they realize that they were happening because that's how much of a bubble they live in.
but then I see something uh, equally disturbing, at least to me, where I see Black Panthers talking to kids on some news special about how they were at the forefront of civil rights, and when I mean they're just as extremist on that side. I mean,
Of course, I
I,
would
I'm not.
argue that the original Black Panthers did nothing wrong and were screwed over by the FBI.
Well, now when did they start?
They did start in the pretty sure it was the 60s, 70s, something like that.
Hmm.
And a big thing of theirs was starting um, self self defense. Was self defense, so they could defend themselves against both corrupt police and criminals in the community.
Hmm.
They were very focused on things like literacy programs and programs for people hungry and homeless. And the whole like COINTELPRO thing was to you know um, was to bad paint them as like white hating extremists and turn people
So
against
CIA,
them.
the CIA went in and stirred up um, trouble within their ranks, right?
Yeah, have you ever heard of the Black Panther coloring book?
No, what is that? What is that?
What it is, it's like a sort of coloring book which had these very extreme images of white police as like literal pigmen. It showed them being brutally murdered uh, by black men and women. And what happened is this was presented to the Black Panthers as something to distribute. They said no because they were disgusted by it, and then they started sending it out randomly to random white people's houses to paint it as like, hey, this is what the Black Panthers are. And it's like it's never was never officially like confirmed, but the guy who made them and sent them out was an FBI agent.
And so they were associated with it, even though they rebuked it, basically.
Yeah,
Now,
the
this is
FBI.
helpful information right here. See, no, I didn't know that. You know, it's hard not to believe in conspiracy theories when um, two different Kennedys were assassinated and two different Martin Luther King Sr. and Jr. were both assassinated, weren't they?
I don't know about senior, but I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and I do think at some point either the CIA or the FBI practically admitted involvement in the assassination. I'd have to look that up.
Well, now I thought Martin Luther King was the senior.
No, he was junior.
Okay. All right, never mind then. You know that whole do the right thing was always an interesting movie to me. At the end, where it highlights and juxtaposes two different philosophies. Um, one of Martin Luther King, win people's understanding, and by uh, making peace, and then Malcolm X's is just no, raw brute force, self defense, no matter what the cost. And to kick that over to the white side, if we had two juxtaposed leaders like that, we would probably take the Malcolm X philosophy more seriously. I still don't support Black Lives Matter. I just don't. I think they're part of the shitstorm in politics. Um, whether they have been co-opted by certain forces within the government as well, and intelligence agencies, obfuscating and instigating riots. I don't know, but um, me personally, I would probably follow a Malcolm X leader more than I would a Martin Luther King. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm just kind of pondering openly here.
Yeah, I one thing about like the Black Lives Matter is Lord Jamar of the Brand Nubians, who is a very uh, pro-black rapper. He was a member of the 5% Nation. He actually like went on an interview and talked about how he didn't support Black Lives Matter, how he did believe wasn't a black led movement, that it was funded by George Soros and other sort of neoliberal capitalists.
Yeah, this Soros guy's got to go. I mean, he's got his filthy little hands in everything, man.
Makes me wonder, like, how these people who say he does, which I mean, I'm not saying that I think they're wrong, but it's like, how can you follow the trail back to that one guy? It seems like he would be pretty good at covering it up.
Well,
Well, when
that's
you have
that's
that
kind
much
of
money, I don't know that you can cover it up when you have that much money. As long as there is a paper trail, I guess offshore accounts in like the Cayman Islands or you know Aruba, places like that, you could hide the money there. But
yeah, it's probably a case of like you could like hide it on a technical legal level, but everyone knows what's happening.
hmm.
It's kind of like why I would say I don't believe in conspiracy theories per se, because there don't need to be. It's kind of out in the open. It's like what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Like everybody knows that guy didn't fucking kill himself, but there's there's not going to be any investigation.
You know, I almost feel like they may have done that to make a martyr out of him, because now we forgot what a scum he is, and we're mad because the knowledge he had, it has gone to waste, and he got away. They took him away when we could have used all the knowledge he had if he'd turned, and taken a plea bargain or something, or flipped, as they say. It's almost like they made him a martyr, which is really sick, because he is stained permanently with the filth of all the things he's done and alleged to have done. And you saw where that news reporter Amy Robach came out and said that she knew all that stuff connecting Epstein to all these crimes, and that female friend of his, going years back, at least 10 years. And the ABC network squashed it or whatever, because nobody knows who Jeffrey Epstein is, at the time. Now they've all
Yeah,
made a martyr out of him because he got away, and died. He was murdered. And and now we'll never know what he would have said if had he flipped.
You know, I wonder where he fits into the program to kill paradigm.
Oh yeah. He wouldn't be like on the ground, um, in the way that the serial killers are, but he would be able to activate, sleeper agents, so to speak, with trigger words. I guess if we're talking about the whole MK Ultra thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would. I'm sure he would be able to activate his victims by words and certain image associations. So
Yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that. I mean, the fact that this stuff has been, these pedophile rings and just like, I don't really know what you would even call them, just these groups that are into this pretty much everything heinous.
isn't it scary how many rings they've busted up in the last few years, and yet you keep finding out there's more.
Yeah, the one that I wish, I mean, I don't get why it just like flew out of the news. You never hear about it anymore was the, God, what was it? Was it like the small town actress? She was an actress who'd been found to be involved in a cult.
Oh,
Which
I remember. I know what you're talking about. I can't. She was
Uh,
like
uh,
on
yeah,
Smallville, wasn't she?
Allison. Is it Allison Mack?
I can't remember her name, but I'm pretty sure
An
she was on
actual.
Smallsville.
Yeah, she was an actress on Smallsville, and she was in the Nexium cult. I actually covered this briefly. And they would have to brand the leader of the cult's initials on their uh, crotches or hips or whatever, um, and she would recruit new girls for this guy. And you know that the reporter who was investigating and exposing Nexium like 5 years before it became public record and news, his life has been ruined. He was jailed indefinitely at some point, and it had something to do with reporting on Nexium. So he brought it to he was bringing it to the surface, and they ruined his life. I tried to reach out to him a while back when I was looking into this whole subject, and his email no longer works. His phone number no longer works, and he's gone radio silent. And
yeah, that reminds me of the people like back when. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the smiley face killer thing, but
oh yeah,
there were a couple of people who like were I guess they were bloggers about it way back before it was kind of like a big urban legend that everyone knew about, and they kind of just dropped off the face of the earth. I mean, not they dropped off the internet basically, but people who've tried reaching out to them are always unsuccessful.
yeah. See, I don't understand the mentality of dismissing conspiracy theory, because a conspiracy is defined as two or more people involved in what a criminal undertaking, right, or a criminal task. Well, I mean, the three of us here could be engaged in a conspiracy. I mean, it's like saying the mafia doesn't exist. The mafia is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
It's a group of two or more people. I mean, it's more than two people engaged in, crime, organized crime. So is organized crime a theory? No.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
suppose
mean,
for me to one bit is from everyone was when the whole Pizzagate thing was happening. It's sort of like a difference between like to me, like a conspiracy theory is talking about, oh, there's a sex dungeon in this random pizza parlor versus the actual truth, which is there are people in high levels of government in the White House, in Buckingham Palace, who are involved, or at the very least know people involved in pedophile rings. Yes, that's the case, but it's not this absurd thing with this um, child sex dungeon operating out of a pizza place. It's the
You
truth is like more is a lot less. The truth is a lot less. Oh, it's more depressing and a lot less. I
exciting,
guess I don't know what you say. It's a lot less exciting.
the
cinematic.
thing is though, is it?
Yeah,
Because I mean,
cinematic is a good way to put it.
if it can go that far, it just makes you wonder how much further it can go. Because I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just a gut level thing. I mean, I don't believe every conspiracy, obviously, but I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, yeah. There's certain things like JFK, the assassination. I think there's a good reason why those have been so enduring. I do think that there, probably was fuckery going on behind the scenes. Why 9/11 conspiracies, I think, still remain. Like even if you don't believe in the controlled demolition thing, like it's even just the official story makes it practically obvious that it was either like uh, just gross incompetence or just outright intentional neglect going on.
I would say a big reason a lot of these conspiracy theories get very, like as he said, cinematic is because a lot of them seem to have a really strong connection to the occult, and that kind of just leaves the door open for, I guess, horror movie type possibilities.
Did you know
Yeah.
that? Did you know that an aide to or an intern or a secretary to Hillary Clinton died on 9/11 in a plane crash? Her name was Barbara Olson. It was the same day she released a tell-all book about the final days of the Clinton administration.
That I did not know, and I knew a lot of weird stuff about 9/11.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Um,
I do know there was apparently like I don't know what he was. He was like uh, a senator, some kind of politician who had actually committed had actually on the day of 9/11 had committed a murder, and while the towers were burning, that's when he took the opportunity to hide the body.
is that real?
Yeah, I cannot remember any of the details about it, but it's something that stuck with me.
Huh.
I mean, it's just like would never have a better opportunity to hide the body.
The thing that always struck me as the strangest coincidence with 9/11 was the dog and the star symbol. Like the astro or star symbol the day that 9/11 happened was supposed to be Sirius, which something to do with like the occult or like a gateway to hell, like what it represents. And then it was like all over the media for a period of time that one dog had gotten killed, and when the towers went down, and then oddly it was named Sirius, which is very weird coincidence.
Huh.
Yeah, you can like definitely like draw those sort of like weird coincidences. Um, and I think that that is something of a problem with a lot of so-called conspiracy theories. There's a pareidolia, an attempt to see patterns where there may not necessarily be them, and that can kind of obscure the actual, problems that are going on. Like if someone is trying to like look too deeply into that, they can kind of just miss. Well, the way they handled this, they're either grossly incompetent or they let this happen.
You mean like numerology? I think that a lot of people get too tied up in the numerology end of certain conspiracies. When you're getting to the point where it's like uh, this name, his name has two E's, and that adds up to this number, in numerology, and blah 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 blah. Come on, yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
the thing I always wondered with that was like, what number doesn't have freaking occult significance?
Yeah, the whole point of like numerology is like assigning each number a significance.
Really?
Yeah, isn't it that they say this number is has this significance? I don't know much about it, but that seems to be kind of the case with it.
Yeah, they can make they can make anything a pattern based on that shit, and yeah, that's
Yeah,
where I
and
think
it's
they get too distracted. And also this weird little subculture centered around Illuminati, Hollywood, you know, type stuff where supposedly everyone has an MK Ultra handler that knows how to trigger words. I mean, MK Ultra was a real thing, and I mean there were lawsuits brought about in the 70s and 80s, I believe, but and there was real abuse um, by for the subjects who were surrendered to that project, but I don't know how much it has to do with Hollywood. Oh, Corey Feldman was Corey Haim's handler, and that's why he was hooked on drugs because Feldman wouldn't let him out of Hollywood.
Dude,
Uh,
what annoys me the most is going like the same type of just craziness is the I don't want to completely just diss these people, but like the Project Camelot type crowd, like the freaking reptilians and the lion people and the spider people fighting on another dimension. And I
yeah,
mean,
Stuart Swerdlow, who I interviewed, he talked about that stuff, and I think he's a fantastic storyteller, but I can only take it as a great story when he's talking about a living, breathing Ankh symbol that spoke to him in visions and praying mantis people.
yeah, the thing is, it's kind of really interesting because the whole, I guess you'd say, John Keel type paradigm is that like all these things are, manipulative demons or whatever, and they're always like changing with the paradigms over time. It's just interesting that in this age of movies, everyone's freaking conspiracy theory is like a space opera.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
you've
it's
been
sort of like if you look into like modern cults and modern religions, like Scientology, like all of them are based around uh, things like that. Scientology, it's a space opera. Heaven's Gate, like I can't think of like any off the top of my head that any modern ones that don't involve aliens.
Yeah, and the thing is, it seems like these kind of I don't even know if you would call them religions or whatever, but it's like they make themselves up as they go. That's the feeling I always get.
yeah,
There is kind of a sense of that, yeah.
you
Yeah,
mentioned Project Camelot. I remember they actually had a guy on who claimed to be half dolphin.
God.
I mean,
Remember when that was a thing where like that sort of '90s new age aesthetic where dolphins were everywhere.
mhm.
I don't know why I thought of that, but
I
now
think
I want to play Echo the Dolphin.
Ray Bradbury actually wrote a story in the '90s about how aliens came to Earth and to look for the smartest, most intelligent species, and they settled on dolphins instead of people. People assumed they would be the ones they would be speaking with, but they instead they took dolphins as their specimens.
That must be where Echo the Dolphin got its inspiration.
Oh man, no, Echo the Dolphin, yeah, partially, but it was also based on a really cruel medical experiment um, or something where they kept this dolphin isolated, and I don't remember all the specifics, but I think he had a crush on the girl who
Oh,
communicated. You know,
yeah, where he would refuse to do anything until the girl masturbated it.
yeah, poor guy. We can all relate, right?
I'm not doing anything until I get fucking late.
Exactly. Well, hey, he didn't have he did. Hey, he's lucky he didn't even have to wine and dine her, right?
No. He's just being a sexy dolphin self.
You guys want to see some politicians fight?
Always.
Check
Do
this
they
out.
kill each other?
No, but
Ah.
they get downright intimate in each other's spaces. Just about. I have this thing with local city council meetings. Well, not just local, but all over the U.S. It's amazing the amount of conflicts and fights and showdowns you can amass in just small town uh, politics in city councils. And so I found a few. Actually, this one's in Canada. maybe, but I found just a treasure trove of city council showdowns. So I might show you if you got the time for it here.
Yeah.
Here we go. Is it coming? Is it going through? Okay.
Get out of this chamber. You're a bully.
Don't touch me.
You're a bully.
Don't touch me.
You're trying to destroy the public service in this
Please
city.
don't touch me.
Yeah, who's the bully? Right? Look at who's in
You're
whose
leaving the chamber.
face.
Leave the
I will
chamber.
defend myself if you keep touching me. Don't touch me.
I'm not touching you, George.
Get away from me.
Leave the
Get away
chamber.
from my space.
Can you
We
hear?
want to find ourselves.
You can hear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave the chamber.
Get
You
away
said
from
you're
my
leaving the
space.
chamber.
Please.
You haven't got the courage to stand up and
Get
debate
away
this.
from my space.
Leave.
Please get away from my space.
Leave.
I'm asking you nicely.
Get out of my
Please
safe
get away
space.
from my space.
You use your bully pulpit to try to intimidate the public
I
service.
think that you are bullying me.
Punch him already.
Please stop.
Unbelievable.
Fight.
Destroying public service in this city.
I want to see the mandate of the ombudsman as it pertains to any potential political comments or political reports that she may or may not be able to write. And at that point, I will make my decision on the report itself. It seems to be driven towards the mayor of the city of Toronto, and I'm not sure that the mandate has the ombudsman to include the political end of any report. And until I read the mandate, I'll hold firm to wanting to read the mandate.
All right.
There are some in council that want to attack.
Here we go. Fight at Herman Village Hall.
Forward, and that's all I'm asking for.
This is a good one.
People.
You better get to know me, son. Just come right across the road.
Now I want you to notice something. First off, he's got him by the shirt and he's yanking it off him.
It turns into a crop top.
Look at how he backs up and he struts like he's actually done something, like he's actually put the fear of God into this guy. You're gonna get to know me, son. Meanwhile, the other guy's the only one who got any action in on. Like, yeah, you ripped my shirt. Well, I guess I showed you. You're gonna get to know me. He didn't even get a shot in, and he's backing up and letting his wife walk him away.
You're lucky she's holding me back, man.
Let's see. What are some others?
Wonder what these people are fighting about.
Oh yeah, I don't
Something
always have
stupid,
time
probably.
I don't always have time to discern that. I just get on I go on benders with this shit. It's amazing. Now these people are legendary for fighting on city council. Carpentersville in I think Illinois or Ohio, something like that. Is the volume okay?
Yeah.
I have to say, from all the emails I have received from many, many residents and phone calls I have received from many, many residents, that I am very disappointed in this board. That members of this board have attended many meetings talking about improving our image.
You're all done.
I like the cuts.
I know. You're all
Improving our image. You're all fucking dumb.
We were handing out flyers over the weekend, and one trustee did not like it in her neighborhood. Not only did she not like it, she ran after the gentlemen that were handing them out, demanding, because she was a trustee, she knew the law with another lady, and said, "Give me those flyers." Not one of them turned around and gave them to her because we already knew the law. We checked with the village. We checked with the attorneys. Can we do this? Absolutely. She took it upon herself to get in her vehicle and chase these people down.
He's fighting for American freedom to hand out flyers.
On this board? That's the question.
The question has been called. We need to take the vote.
No, the question is, why are you people sitting on this board? Who do you represent in this community? That's the question. Who do you represent?
I guess we're sitting on here to make sure you don't ramrod everything you want.
Ramrod.
Yes.
Ramrod.
Absolutely.
Ramrod.
Absolutely.
Trustee Ritter, you are. I hate to say this. Thank you. I really hate to say
Oh,
this.
you won't hate to say it. You'll love saying it. Go ahead, say it.
No, I
Insult
really hate to say this because you should be a person, especially a school teacher.
Right. All right. Call my employment into question.
Jerry.
Ramrod definition: a rod for ramming down the charge of a muzzle-loading firearm.
All right. Listening to you.
Unfortunately, nothing ever sinks into any of you people.
I think that we already are waiting for loan actions that you requested from the state's attorney.
Yeah, don't worry, they will happen, believe me. So whether you guys want to take care of this or somebody else is going to do it, we could clean our own house as we ought to do, but oh no, not this town, not this board, not these people. I hope the voters out there are watching. I hope the voters are out there watching this because we're going to see what kind of representation they have on this board.
And
President
Sardo, the voters, President Sardo, the voters
I'll take
also,
the 96 to 6 vote every day of the week.
they also know of the double standard where your police report says you threatened to kill your wife. And this
Dun, dun, dun.
I was not charged with anything, Trustee Sigler.
Hey, I wasn't charged.
I was not charged with anything.
Question's been called.
And don't you ever defame me in public
Question's been called.
unless you want to be unless you want to talk to my attorney.
It's okay for you to defame us though.
No, I'm not
The
defaming
question
you.
has been called.
You guys are a
Senior
disgrace.
trustee.
All of you.
Right to
From
that.
the convict at the end to the woman whose son had sex with the convict's wife. Unbelievable.
This took a hard left turn into Asshole,
How about that shit, huh?
Making me want to go to my own city council meetings.
Check this guy out.
Hey,
Look at, you shut up, because I'm gonna tell her something now. I didn't like to call it, you just told me the other. I had an operation, so I was supposed to, you could kiss my ass. No, it ain't enough.
Seinfeld.
No, you hit the goddamn, you know what, I'm sorry, Jim Martin, get out of here. You hit the run. Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm asking, no, I'm sorry, Jim Martin, I'm asking her to be removed. No.
Looks like they're in a retirement home.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a town hall.
I don't need people.
well, some of these smaller ones, they just sometimes have like a community center or something.
Uh-huh.
You're doing a good job. You do the whole line.
Oh, you got legitimate.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Too bad.
All in favor? I'm signed up for citizen comment. I signed up for citizen comment. I get none.
Yeah.
Okay, this is probably a stupid question, but what role did the Kiwanis people play in like town government?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's probably more like a thing where a lot of people who are in Kiwanis are probably also involved in town governments.
You guys familiar with Rob Ford?
No.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, he was the
Oh.
mayor in Toronto that smoked crack. He got caught smoking crack with a black guy who took the footage of the media or whatever.
We have an agenda that we're here to do. It's our job to get this agenda through.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Wong.
there's nothing more important than how this council operates.
and that we're free to take our positions and act on behalf of the best interests of the city. I refer you to the Council Perks assisted me with this, Rule 27-47. If a member disobeys a rule in the procedural bylaw or a chair's ruling, he's failed to apologize, that you have to give him that you are required to give or you may give a verbal warning to the member. That's the only remedy available. I would ask you that you use that remedy.
Okay, Mayor Ford, I did say when we started that, in fact, I did not hear you, but there were members of council that did. So I'm asking you, Mayor, if you would please apologize so we can continue with the agenda. That's my rule.
Madam Speaker, apologize for following the rules and asking the other members of council to follow the rules? That's what I'm apologizing for? No, I don't think there's an apology necessary. If I said something derogatory, if I did what he said he's accusing me of, yes, I would apologize, but I did not say that.
Well,
Madam Clerk was right there. All I asked him to do is take his seat while people are asking questions. That's the rules, not walk around. That's it. There's nothing to apologize about.
Okay, Mayor Ford.
So, no, I'm not going to apologize. If I did something wrong, I would apologize. I did absolutely nothing wrong besides asking him to take his seat like you do every 10 times a meeting. You tell members that.
Wait a minute. There's better Rob Ford around here. Where he talked about eating pussy to the news media. Yeah. Well, first here he knocks down a city councilor. He's trying to get at somebody. And he knocks down that senior citizen.
Democracy. It is not. It's not a football field. Not just and
He's like a Canadian Chris Farley. Look at him.
I live in a van down by the river.
This dude needs his own sitcom.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob Ford went to be with the Angels. He went to smoke crack in heaven.
Oh yeah, it's old, 2013.
Yeah.
I thought crackheads were supposed to be skinny.
Well, yeah, him and Artie Lang, though, you know. Maybe this is the one where he talks about eating pussy. I don't...
The embattled mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, the city council there moving fast to make him mayor in name only after a series of outbursts and bizarre comments. ABC's Lindsay Davis has a story.
After showing up to work wearing a football jersey, Toronto's mayor proceeded to put his foot squarely in his
nothing else he had would fit.
This time denying that he'd propositioned a former employee with a sexual act.
I've never said that in my life tour. I would never do that. I'm happily married.
Rob Ford's denial that he had made lewd comments was itself so lewd, we're unable to air it in its entirety.
Okay, well, thanks then.
Ford found a new line to cross today. No easy task for a mayor who admits he smoked crack and gets hammered. I
love it.
He's sped around the world, so you might think he'd choose his words with extra care. Not today. In front of the cameras, yet again, he let loose with language many found deeply vulgar. And a warning, you might too. Senior correspondent Adrian Arsenault has all the details.
As soon as you use the word release,
Apparently feeling a little helpless, Toronto City Council members have now resorted to the power of symbolism, turning their backs on the mayor while he speaks. Many probably wished they could just turn down the volume on him.
I would have voted for this guy.
Was still young. Ford raged against those who talked to police about drugs and booze and mayoral misogyny. Fury-fueled vulgarity from the city's chief magistrate, who really ought to know better.
Oh, and the last thing was Olivia Gondak. It says that I wanted to eat her. I've never said that in my life tour. I would never do that. I'm happily married. I've got more than enough to eat at home.
Oh my God, this is awesome.
That's a good response.
Oh, you will never hear that from a politician again in quite that way. Peace, Mr. Ford. Oh, Godspeed. Wow.
Well, you think I'm trying to fuck my interns? My wife keeps my balls drained. I don't fucking need that.
Check out this mayor getting kicked out of his own town hall meeting.
I'm good, sir. Thank you. The next is new business. Council Mayor, you have a habit of egging on the crowd. I've been asking you to refrain, sir. I'm asking you to refrain. So, did you just say, there you go? Yep. Mayor. Yep. At this point in time, I'm gonna ask you to leave the meeting. Stop. It's a time in Phillipsburg where we have to ask the mayor to leave the building because of behavior like this. It's not a reason to clap.
It's the two of
Joe.
them. It's not one of them, it's two of them.
Joe.
I'm going.
Thanks.
By the way, anybody that wants to work on.
Joe. One more outburst.
Oh God.
There's no
Absolutely right.
Have either of you two actually been to like a city council meeting or anything with local politics?
No, but this makes me want to. I mean, I'm seriously considering it. Surely there's some explosive moments like this, right? I mean, here's a good one.
You gentlemen want to speak up so everyone can hear you? Are you ramrod this town right now?
An intense
Ramrod.
Ramrod. There's that word again.
local town council meeting. Good evening and welcome to News 10 on My Fox 10. Violence erupts in Hymera, Indiana, as council members make a decision on the town's marshal. As we found out tonight, not everyone agrees on the future of the position. News 10's Sarah Schaefer has been following this story. She and photographer Gary Bryan were literally right in the middle of the heated meeting.
Yeah, that's right, Patrice. This was the scene of the fight that started.
Oh man, that's brutal.
He's hitting the kid.
Look at what the kid did to him.
Oh God.
Oh, that's brutal.
It's a battle. Yeah.
He's actually scratching for his eyes.
Oh my God.
He's looking at her like, bitch, I'll hit you too.
Legal action against the board. The board came in with plans to replace Collison with Daryl McCullough.
No, they haven't made it.
Yes, they have.
From that angle, he looks kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I don't have nothing to say to you.
Then why don't you shut your crowd up there?
We want an
A motion passed with a 2-to-1 vote to hire McCullough.
I made a motion. What's the motion? We didn't hear it.
Hire.
Then more words were exchanged. That led to the fight. It was a sight one lifelong resident says he's never seen.
How does it feel to see the town so divided like this? Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I have. Why do we need a town marshal? For 3 weeks. I think it got a little out of hand. I just tried to ask a simple question as to why we terminated the town marshal in October.
You're crooked as they come.
Eventually, the fight was broken up. Then police from surrounding areas showed up. This was the last meeting for this town board. A new board takes over the first of the year. Patrice.
I followed up on that one actually, and I found out that the guy, I guess the town marshal who was fired, and his son, they actually did a day or two in jail over that. I don't know about the guy, who fought back, who was with the white hair. I don't know what happened with him, but yeah, the other
Maybe
day.
this show should become like an America's Funniest Home Video thing.
Yeah, there is a lot of political turmoil. You don't have to go to the national news to find it, man. It's everywhere in all these little small towns. It's amazing. Check this out. This is at a school board meeting. After a school board meeting concluded, he's one of the lawyers at this really like overly Jewish school in New York, East Ramapo, I think, and he smirked during the portion of the meeting where they talked about special needs kids or something, and the parents got real mad at him, and here he is reacting to them in the parking lot. Check this out. This is an attorney, mind you.
Wanna call me an asshole now, huh? I already did. Oh, did you? You fucking cocksucker? Huh? Huh? What? You got a problem?
I don't got a problem.
Yeah, you do. I'm standing in your way. You gonna do something about it? Yeah, I didn't think so.
No,
Take a picture of his license plate.
he's an asshole, and he knows it.
Should I get a picture of his license plate?
Go ahead. He's an asshole.
I don't think we need to go back to this meeting. We're calling the police right now. Ramapo police are on their way.
Go hide behind your women.
Ramapo police are right here.
Come on.
There's an incident in the parking lot at 105 South Madison.
Come on, look.
There is a lawyer who's in the town. He needs someone there right away.
What a man. What a tough guy.
105 South Madison. There's going to be a fight. Get over here now.
Wait, did you just say there's gonna be a fight? Get over here.
Yeah.
That's gonna look good.
Hey, yeah, you're gonna miss miss your chance to get a front row seat. You got to hurry.
Yes.
You don't want to miss this, man. It's the main event.
Want
to go somewhere now?
Let's go. South Madison. There's going to be a fight.
In the parking lot, the lawyer is about to attack one of the parents.
He wants to name the place. Come on.
Yeah.
I can tell. Hide behind what? 7 women here?
Come on.
You're not hiding behind anybody. Who are you hiding behind? Your paycheck?
Shut up,
Come
you
on.
fat cunt.
Don't tell. Okay. Don't let him leave. Don't let him leave.
That's it. That's it. Fuck you, you fucking bitch.
Goodbye. You cannot keep him here. You cannot keep him here. No one has ever called me that name. Ever.
I'm one person, but I agree with you. What do you want me to say?
I'm sitting there with a smirk. Fuck you. I can sit there. They're paying me to sit there. I work for the board, not for you.
Chris, go home. Why are you arguing with them? Please, I'm begging you to go home. You're gonna regret it.
What are you doing now, huh? You trying to intimidate me? Is that what you're doing?
No one can intimidate you.
Chris,
Is
go
it
home.
Is it possible he's drunk? You can't possibly be okay and you are behaving like that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that how you talk to your wife?
You either
You know
drunk
what?
If
or
I were
high.
married to you, are you
Is that
kidding
how you talk to your wife?
I
Oh,
blow
you
my
would be
fucking
married to
brains
me.
out.
You're not man enough. You are not man enough. Now stay here and face the police.
Just gonna have.
Because you know what? We need some more really bad coverage here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Whose fault is that?
Yours.
Why don't you sue the district
Yours.
again? Why
It's
don't you
yours.
sue the district? It costs them more millions of
Yours.
dollars. It's our
I'm not
fault.
suing anybody. I'm not suing anybody.
Make sure he doesn't report this as ours against the district.
Right. I gotta go home. I can't wait for you. Just go.
You should wait for the police.
Just go.
Why not wait for the police report now?
Oh, yeah? Okay. Fine.
Just go home, Chris. You're not getting anything. I promise you. Just go home. You're just gonna escalate. It's no point. You're hot, and everyone's hot. Just go.
Good night.
Good night. Go.
Good night.
Get ready.
You know, I've noticed something. It
What?
seems like all the people that get into really heated, like fist fight type arguments are all like older. And then all the younger kids that get into political disputes, it's never physical.
Something else I've noticed. Have you noticed how everybody who's about to get into a fight, they let this is in any walk of life, really. I've noticed this. Anytime that they're about to get into a fight and someone's trying to break it up, they kind of let the person who's breaking it up walk them backwards. When really, if they really wanted to fight, they could just plow right over them. You know, you ever noticed how most people let the peacemaker walk them backward, like, because nobody really wants to fight, I don't think, unless they just can't conceive of the consequences. Like, why would you want to get into a physical fight in public knowing that you'll probably spend the night in jail? I love sleeping in my own bed at night. That's why I do all I can to avoid, the escalation of a conflict to that degree, But
yeah, I've spent the night in jail. It fucking sucks. You don't want to do it.
Yeah, why don't more people think of that when they get into these little tussles?
Yeah, that's what most fights are. Is just shit talking and waiting for the bouncer to break it up.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting public input before we go.
Klein 53 Turnberry. As far as the increase, you're touting how small the increase is and how great it is for us. Last year's budget, you put $2 million in from the referendum to keep it lower. This year, putting 3.5 in to make it lower. What happens when the other 3 million is gone, where you're going to have your real increase and we'll be back up to 18 cents? The baloney about us being a wealthy community, I have handouts that I'm going to give all of you when I finish my 3 minutes. Manalapan got to be wealthier than we are. Last year they got 19.3 million. Marlborough, wealthier than we are, 10.7 million. East Brunswick, wealthier than we are, 16.5 million. Old Bridge, 43 million. Jamesburg got 4.6 million. South Brunswick, 21.5. South Plainfield, 8.3. You see where I'm going? Woodbridge, 21.1. Where I'm going now is the fact that something that I've complained about for 3 years, that this board finally woke up last year and see that we're shortfall. What I see going on in this administration is what Muhammad Ali did as a boxer. It's called the rope-a-dope. He laid on a rope and let, in our case, the state just pounds the crap out of us. But Muhammad Ali would come back and fight. There is no fight from this administration. We get kicked in the face year after year, including 2 years when they did not pay us the $500,000 they owed us in state aid that they promised us, and they beat us out the end of the year. Nothing was done. No fights were done. Now we get hit again. The administration doesn't do a damn thing. I said to sue. You people refuse to sue. We have a right to sue, and I don't know what you have to do to light a fire under you, but come the end of the other $3 million, when you got to start coming up with the full increase that you can't take other monies to put in, where's it all going to come from?
No mystery where that town hall is. That's totally New Jersey or New York. Yeah, New Jersey.
If Dr. Ferry was still here, he would have fought. He fought for the new high school.
Last month I sat here and I listened to you pontificate when you do nothing. You know good and well what this administration has done to get more funding for the state. You've seen every letter, you've seen every phone call, you do nothing but stand here at that microphone and pontificate, and you don't know what you're talking about. You're an empty can making a lot of noise. I'm sick of it. I'm sick and tired of it. You don't know what you're talking about, and you have intentionally misused this for a purpose.
Mr. Klein.
Been in the papers.
Mr. Klein.
You put it in the papers, and you've misrepresented everything that's in there. What have you done? You know good and well what I've done. I'm tired of you standing there misrepresenting the facts. You know the facts.
Mr. Klein, I'm asking you to please take your seat.
I would step down and I would quit if I were you. You don't like it? Not me. That's the difference. I've been fighting and you know it.
Mr. Klein, I'm asking you to please take your seat.
You're right.
Mr. Klein.
So am I. I'm entitled to not let you stand at that microphone home and trash this administration when you don't know what you're talking about. The lack of what you've done, you haven't seen anything. Everything what you want to see. Yeah, I want to talk about ethics. Bring it. Bring it.
Come at me, bro. I'm fucking ripped.
Bring it. Here's another one that got heated.
Also new tonight, a man threatened to shoot Roanoke Mayor Sherman Lee and other city council members. It happened at this afternoon's meeting, and it's not the first time he's done this. 10 News reporter Shane Dwyer shows us why now Mayor Lee wants police officers at future meetings for everyone's safety.
I advise you to shut up, Mr. Mack, and have 7 police officers, 7 deputies with chain to remove you from that seat. So listen.
I'm telling you, you out of order. This was the outburst that brought Monday afternoon's Roanoke City Council meeting to a screeching halt. Robert Gravely is a frequent flyer at council meetings, but this time the mayor says Gravely's normal grievances went too far.
These days, in the climate we live in, when people threaten to take action against you, you can't take those things lightly, especially from him, and he should know better. He's done it before.
You put me in jail. My first time said I made a threat. My statement was, I can and I will have you shot.
Gravely repeating Monday what he said from the same spot nearly a decade ago. After being escorted out of the building and talking to police, telling 10 News he stands by it.
I can't. According to the Constitution, any man, a presidential order, any man who conspired against America should be shot on the spot. John Bush, President of the United States.
Police did not end up charging Gravely.
That's my favorite one so far.
The Constitution guarantees me the right to shoot people I don't like. Come on, man. Get with it, you know?
Well, it should give us the right to shoot politicians.
It is my constitutional right to shoot you if I don't like you.
America.
You're talking about running out of office or voting out of office, and that's okay. You have the right to do that, but when we're talking about threatening and shooting, that's across the line.
Just a month prior, council announced they're asking Richmond for a second time the permission to restrict guns at meetings.
Take a seat.
Mayor Lee says this situation is a prime example, and he also wants police officers at meetings going forward. What happened upset council and people in attendance, including an 11-year-old Boy Scout and his mother. They're working on a merit badge.
People have to know, they're safe, because some people are just pregnant. They were afraid.
The Roanoke City manager says he is looking into the mayor's request. In Roanoke, Shane Dwyer, 10 News, working for you.
I've noticed Missing 411, the movie, stays in your recommended things. Have you watched that recently?
Oh, well, yeah, the second one was better, though.
Yeah,
it
first one
went somewhere, you know?
Yeah, but that ain't YouTube clips. What's his name are better than both the movies, really.
Yeah.
The coast to coast interviews. David Platt.
Yeah, he's a good researcher. I mean, I don't remember.
What can you do from what we need to do? We're coming to you. We're telling you what needs to be done. What can you do to help us?
And we're hearing you. And we have responded to Mr. Jones time and again from the Franklin Police Department. He just
You responded by calling him a racist. You responded by calling him a racist. Like, how is that a justifiable response?
We here for this meeting in the first beginning. He shouldn't have opened this mouth. So let's get on with what we here for. We need solutions. And what everybody do, we've been supposed to say anything. He opened up the loophole and
I'm gonna take you out.
Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do.
Do what you gotta do.
So you don't hear anything? People are signed up to speak. Let's give them civility.
Let's see if I can find this one. This is the best one if I can find it. Is it? It's George Ford or George Ford? Everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Rob Ford again.
However, that when this investigation does come back from the Integrity Commissioner, I will be asking for us to look at random drug tests of each of us. And I do that because on one hand, many of you stand up and you want to criticize the behavior of the mayor, of which he has said he's been under the influence a number of times, of which he said he has tried illicit drugs. We all heard that. There are some in the chamber that I believe, and I truly believe, have done the same things. But yet you want to stand up and you want to criticize the mayor. And I say to you that if the behavior of the mayor is of concern when he's on a substance kick, then I say to you it should be for you as well. And if you're willing to lash out at the mayor in a public forum like this, then you should do a blood test yourself. And if you find to be under the influence, you deserve the same thing. And I say to you that because I truly believe it. I think that when you are under the influence of something, it makes you act a different way.
But I have to move this motion. And no one wants to move this motion. But I'm not a rat. I don't want to. It's my fault.
Move your motion so you before.
Let City Council direct all members of council
to undergo hair, drug, and alcohol testing with the necessary funds to be covered by Rob Ford.
What's wrong with it?
Not a speaker. Not a speaker.
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
If I can't.
Okay, hold on. Well, just a sec. Yes, Councillor Fletcher, just let me. No, I know, Mayor Ford. I'm going to rule on your motion.
That guy was amazing, was he not?
I'll rule on
yes.
motion.
Yeah, I do drug. I've done drugs.
Mayor Ford,
why don't you take the test?
You mentioned smoking. I informed you that the motion is out of order. No, hold on. It's germane to this item, so it's not in order.
They need more politicians like that who are just like, yeah, I drink a lot, I do a lot of drugs, and I fucked mad bitches.
So at this point, your motion is out of order.
Check this guy out. This guy is like Dolomite levels of cool. This guy, he was in the 80s, the early 80s, but the clip still holds up today. It became a meme for a little while.
We'll have some of that new one. Give me some regular.
George, give 1 second. I just want to ask you a question. We're doing a story on tax collecting overdue bills for the city. That's the number of councilmen who haven't paid their water or sewer bills yet.
Cash flow problem.
Is that why you haven't paid yours?
I didn't know it wasn't paid, but
Well, it's been about a year since you paid a water or sewer bill. For instance, it's almost $500.
Long ways from 2,000 I would have done time.
So you say you are paying off your bill?
No, I didn't say that.
But it says here you haven't paid your bill in a year.
That's what you said. I'm not aware of that. No big problem. You know, the city ain't gonna go bankrupt.
Wait, don't you think it's a bad example to set?
No, I do not. I don't have the money.
You don't have money to pay a $400 water bill?
I do not have the money. Okay? Did you hear me?
When I talk about storage, don't you think it's
how much
well, you owe $440?
I do not have the money.
You say you don't have money to pay your bill.
Did you hear me?
But your water's still on, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, don't you think your water should be turned off if you're not paying your bill?
No, it should not be.
He ain't done yet.
You know, corner me and I'm gonna kick your ass. One of days you're gonna corner me and I'm gonna kick your ass.
Don't you think that's a legitimate question, George? You're not the only
wait a minute. I gave you a legitimate answer. You asked me about my water bill. What did I tell you?
Said you didn't have the money. But your water's still on, isn't it?
Now, that was my fucking answer to you.
But I don't think everybody has that luxury of having their water.
Tough shit. Okay, now, one of these days you're going to corner me and I'm going to kick your ass. Fucking with me, okay? And I'm telling you, keep fucking with me.
You're not the only one, George.
I'm not talking about anybody else but you. Now, I gave you a goddamn answer.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
I gave you a fucking answer. Now, one of these days, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. And it might be this goddamn one. Now, you got your fucking answer. Now, get out of my goddamn face.
Thank you.
Wow.
I ain't bullshitting with you.
I love how he just came back through the door.
Yeah.
Wait, what do
you say?
I ain't bullshitting with you. Now, I'll take that fucking camera and wrap it around your goddamn head. I give you my fucking answer, okay? Okay. I ain't bullshitting with you. You gotta be. Are you scared? I'll kick your goddamn ass, boy. I ain't bullshitting with you. Son of a bitch. Hang around with this woman. You think I'm bullshitting with you?
Badass, boys. That, of course, in the 80s, you could get away with not paying a water bill for a year and still have water. Another reason to love the 80s, man. Anybody ever heard of Frank Rizzo?
No.
The name sounds familiar.
What's the first thing you think of when you hear a name like Frank Rizzo?
Is a gangster or something?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Italian mafioso.
Not far off.
Can we talk with you for just a moment? No, I'm busy. You couldn't answer any of our questions? I won't talk to you under any condition. Why is that, sir? Forget it. Scram. Get out of here. Sir, I understand that these...
Stereotypical gangster.
Be on the street, sir. I don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. How do you feel about the security guards being taken off of you, sir? Get away from me or I'm going to throw you out in the middle of the street. Sir, one more question. I'm telling you, get away from me. You were the symbol of law and order in Philadelphia, sir, for many years. People looked up to you and respected you. Look, creep, get out of here. How could you justify your actions at our cameras last Monday in front of your house? You're a creep. We're a member of the media. We'd like to have an...
Out of here, you fucking mook.
Give it all. Don't miss any of it. You're a creep. Get away from
Why are you breaking my balls?
Press card. I'm not hiding behind anything, sir. I just want to get some answers. There's a gang of you here. There's enough of you here. By myself, I'll take you physically.
Yes, I'll take yous.
Well, sir, I'm on the phone street. I should be authorized to be here. I'll break it off your head. I'll break it over your head. Get away from me, you crumb. That's a challenge, except I'll put my dog away and I'll come back. And you got 1, 2, 3, and I'll do it along with you. In that back of that fence, just the 3 of us, 4 of us, me and you. Show you what kind of a man you are. You're less than a man. Okay? You're a crumb creep.
A crumb creep.
There's 3 of you and I'm by myself. And when it's over, there'll be nothing to it. Win or lose, okay? But you don't have the courage. You're a real crumb bum.
A crumb bum.
You're a crumb bum, the 3 of you. And I challenge you. You're a coward. You're a yellow sneak. And if you want to, now what I say, let's forget all the rules of this great country we live in. I will go back to that rule with the 3 of you. Just me. You're a crumb creep coward. You can't take I'm standing up. We're not here to fight. We're here to get some answers to some questions. That's all. I want to fight you. Why is that? Because you're a crumb creep lush coward. You don't
He's making up all kinds of slang.
I was a cop all my life.
I've never heard crumb before used like that.
Crumb bum. You're a crumb creep.
Crumb ramrod creep.
I guess that was a good one to wrap up the little city council thing with. I'll save some more for future episodes. But so, what's everybody reading?
I guess I'll start. Right now, I'm reading The Treasure of Sierra Madre by B. Travin. I just started it. It's a kind of the movie version is kind of famous. It's a Humphrey Bogart movie. The book itself is it's nominally an adventure novel, but reading it, it's 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 a very like realistic kind of novel about these down and out guys trying to hunt for treasure in Mexico. And I actually haven't gotten to the treasure hunting part yet. There is a lot of setup about what like the conditions for poor working people in Mexico in the 1920s was like. Um, what how they a lot of like even like poor whites would just bum around trying to find work. Um, like there's a pretty funny sequence at the beginning where the main character Dobbs is he's basically going up to anyone who's dressed in white to ask them for money because he's broke. And finally, like the third time he asks someone in white for money, the guy realizes like this is the third time you've asked me, and he realizes he's been asking the same guy the whole time.
What's the name of it again?
The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Now that's a classic, isn't it? Isn't that in the Western canon?
I don't know if the book is. I know the movie is pretty famous. Like B. Travin, he like nobody knows anything about who he is. Like there's a lot of suspicions he was a German radical who moved to Mexico at one point. Like he did a lot of books about the Mexican Revolution and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I've heard that name before. What about you, Zach?
I'm reading Final Events by Nick Redfern, and I'm listening to a couple different audiobooks, but the main one's the George Knapp's Skinwalker book. I forgot the exact title. But that one is, so far, it's very, very good.
Nick Redfern is big on the cryptozoology, conspiracy, UFOs, and all that, right?
Yeah, this one is kind of follows my paradigm of the UFO. It's all related in a kind of demonic sense. But, I mean, it's very, very well researched, and Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley get a lot of coverage, and they get related like timeline wise to major UFO events that people who read a lot of UFO stuff, know about.
I'm guessing the Babylon working ritual where Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley did that ritual that supposedly opened a portal or something to hell or limbo, and it later became Area 51.
Yeah, that, and how the timeline like that happens. Then you start getting the UFO sightings, like the conventional modern UFO sightings, plus how Jack Parsons, I guess, claimed that he got all his knowledge from like demons of how to, do the fuel stuff to get to the moon, the rocket science, and all that.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty heavy, but I mean, it is very, very good, and a lot better than the other Redfern book I read, the Black Diary. But
I've got that. I haven't finished it, but that's about men and women in black, right?
Yeah. The primary difference between the two, which I really like about this one, is this one's like it's actual research, whereas the Black Diary is more of like stuff people just send him, like like their Facebook Messenger, like their encounters and stuff. This one's a lot more legitimate.
What else are you reading, Ben? Anything else, or have you read anything else recently?
Yeah, I kind of finally got out of the reading slump that I was in last time we were on. I think the best thing I've read since then is a kind of a short book from Amphetamine Sulfate called New. It's by the author New Chuche. It's called A Stupid Baby. I actually sent Zach my copy of that so he can read that. I don't think you're going to find it on Amazon. You'd have to go to the Amphetamine Sulfate page. What it's about?
I'm familiar with amphetamine sulfate. What is that? A new publisher? Or?
Yeah, they're run by Philip Best, who is the head of the power electronics group, Consumer Electronics. They publish sort of a chapbook length books, like and they like have a sort of a zine style to them. And Stupid Baby is what it's about is about the author's relationship with a prostitute in Thailand. Each chapter, it starts with a text from two different prostitutes he was involved in. One named Goong and the other one named Juan. And the ones from Goong are like very sentimental, very sweet, and they talk about how much she misses him. And the other ones are from Juan, and they're always calling him things like "stupid baby," "stupid foreigner," like things like that, making obscene propositions to him.
This
The
is the
Devils
guy
is
that
his
wrote Mountainhead, right? You mentioned Mountainhead by this guy
yeah.
before. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he's really great, and he does a really good job of setting up like the sort of poverty that the poor people of Thailand live in. He has this way of setting up the ugly things in a very like beautiful way. The relationship between him and this prostitute it's like unexpectedly very tender, very it's very heartbreaking when he has to leave her, and he has this weird way of writing sex scenes that are like gross but still manage to be somehow sweet and intimate.
If you really
Yeah, right there.
think about it long enough, sex is gross. I mean,
if you do it right.
I've always had a problem with all the fluids and getting all. It's not something I can do on command, like at any time. Yeah. Anyway, so this is the one right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I got.
Yeah, I sent him a copy of that, and what's the other one? Small Talk at the Clinic, which is Small Talk at the Clinic. That's a very odd one. It's a sort of like poetry book with sort of fragmented press, and it's filled out with these sort of webcam photos. And what's kind of disturbing is a lot of the webcam photos are of people who look really young, and it's a little bit uncomfortable juxtaposed with the text about drugs and sex.
I almost get an extremist liberal vibe from this publisher. Is that accurate at all?
I don't think so. I mean, Philip Best has been involved in the power electronics scene, which is sometimes rightly, sometimes falsely associated with being fascist. Which there are some power electronics group who are explicitly fascist. Philip Best, I definitely wouldn't call him. From what I've seen, he's never really talked about politics or anything like that, but he does like publish a lot of things about the seedier sides of life.
What is New Juche's story? What is
he actually did start off as a music project. He would have these sort of like ambient music over audio interviews of prostitutes. Prostitution is like his major focus in his writing and his project in general. Like most of his work has been focused on his time in Southeast Asia and Laos, Thailand, and so forth. His name, Chuche, that comes from the philosophy of the North Korean government. Like Chuche, the way it usually translates is self-reliance, but it also can mean like subject or as in like subjective. And for him, he stated that it was sort of a comment on what the philosophy of North Korea was supposedly about versus what's actually going on there. But it also kind of fits in the way that it's like it is a very like sort of subjective point of view. It's very like his the way he writes is very free flowing, often very stream of consciousness. And he's also a photographer, so there's some of his works also feature like photographs of people and places in Southeast Europe. Or not Europe, but Asia.
I finished another one by Jeff Strand, who's quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. Wolf Hunt. I think there are two or three sequels to it by now, but Wolf Hunt is probably Jeff Strand at his best. It's these two contract killers who are transporting precious cargo in the form of a man who is purported to be a werewolf. At first, they don't believe it until he transforms partially, and he manages to escape, and so it becomes a chase to put him back in the cage, and he leaves a trail of dead bodies in his wake. There's violent once the first act of violence happens, it pretty much is a rough and tumble, adventure through one act of violence after another. It never lets up, and it actually sees the contract killers use a bowling pin. One of the contract killers actually uses a bowling pin that's splintered after breaking as like a weapon against the werewolf. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. Jeff Strand, man, is very prolific. I don't know if either of you guys have read his stuff.
I've read his book.
Familiar with him.
I've only read Dweller. Have you read that one?
I'm working on it. That's the one where the kid meets a Bigfoot, right?
Yeah, that one's actually very depressing.
Why is that?
You probably you say you're reading it now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get to the end, yeah, you'll.
Oh no.
It's pretty heavy.
Oh man. Well, there it is, Wolf Hunt, and I understand. Yeah, there's two others.
But yeah, I haven't been meaning to read more of him. The one I've kind of had my eye on reading is Dead Clown Barbecue, just because of the title.
Yeah, I expected more from that one. I don't think he's the best at short stories, and the one that got him all this critical acclaim, the haunted monster tour, haunted forest tour, or whatever. That one actually underwhelmed me. I dislike it when serious horror novels have comic book like villains. That's what the villain of this one is. He's cartoonish. He's comic booky, and I dislike that when I'm trying to read a horror novel that's otherwise pretty serious, and they interject a comic book villain.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
This is not him at his best. Wolf Hunt is Strand at his best, and I haven't finished Dweller, but let's see. What are some other good Strand titles? Kumquat is not even a horror novel. It's like a dramedy, but that's worth reading. It's one of those funny misadventures about strangers falling in love at first glance and going on this crazy road trip together. Just to see a broken down hot dog stand in the middle of New Jersey or whatever. So he's branched out into different territories. Another good one is Cyclops Road. But Jeff Strand is turning into one of my favorite authors, though. I'd like to have him on here, if you guys think you might be into that. Which reminds me, next weekend, if everything works out, we're going to have L.A. Marzulli on. Zach, why don't you tell anybody who's listening now or later a little bit about L.A. Marzulli and what you know about him? I've heard him on Coast to Coast AM. What is his forte?
His forte is very similar to the kind of what we were talking about with the Nick Redfern book about biblical scripture, kind of like supernatural aspects, like everything relating to the paranormal having a demonic sort of origin. And he talks a lot about end time scripture and just really cool stuff. But the Nephilim is really his claim to fame.
Fallen angels.
Yeah, I mean it's really cool. I can't really do it justice like he does, but we're going to talk about hopefully some of the I guess kind of his take on the really crazy conspiracy world and how some of it perhaps could have and kind of infiltration in itself. Like, I guess the main theme would just be deception. It seems like everywhere you go, there's some form of deception, even within the people who are trying to like pick out the deception. And that's what I want to ask him about, because there are various people who try to. They really push the alien reptilian thing too hard, and sometimes it just seems like they have ill intentions. So I want to get his thoughts on that.
Have you ever seen those videos where people will slow down um, the footage of someone, and they'll note these little oddities like, look, their eyes changed color there, or look, he's changing into a lizard, on
Yeah.
live TV.
Yeah, that they're basically just taking that kind of degraded quality that occasionally comes with video and trying to say like, oh look, they're reptilians. It's just like it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's just like we don't need this narrative that they're reptilians. They have connections with pedophile rings, and we know that they do. We don't need to think of them
That
as
is enough
fucking
to
aliens.
implicate them. That's enough to implicate them. Yeah.
What I really like about Marzulli's stuff is that it's kind of got that really. It's grounded in the sense that it's all biblical.
Mhm.
So he's not going completely into left field like a lot of these people.
Like
And
David Icke.
yeah, see, David Icke, I've read a lot of his stuff, but it's like when you take a step back from it, it's like no one, even if you write a 600-page novel, you're not going to convince me there all this stuff going on. And it kind of reminds me of the Jesse Ventura interview back when he was doing the conspiracy theory show. And he cornered David Icke, and he's like, show me a lizard person. And David Icke's like, well, I wrote this 600-page book. And then he just cuts him off. He's like, show me a lizard person.
Mhm.
But I do feel, I mean, that's kind of my paradigm, that these things could have demonic origins. And that's kind of got credence, because every time these people have this reptilian paradigm, it's always so outlandish and absurd. And that's kind of what I want Marzulli to touch on, because I'm sure he's familiar with that.
Let's see, who are some other people. I thought Jordan Maxwell had retired from public speaking, but if he's receptive, I mean, I'd like to get him on too to talk at some point. But also, Jeff Strand to talk about, horror fiction and whatnot. Who are some other guests we could get, Ben? You might be able to talk to Jim Goad for us if you wanted. I don't know, or someone
that would be awesome.
Huh?
It kind of might be because I'm friends with someone who's friends with Jim Goad.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd be willing to do that. I know he's been doing more live streaming, so he might be interested in that. I'd definitely be interested in getting either someone like New Chuche or Philip Best from Amphetamine Sulfate on, maybe Chip Smith from Nine Banded Books. Trying to think of who else.
What about David Cole?
He doesn't like me anymore, so that's out of the question.
Because
I'm friends with. Yeah, I'm friends with I stayed friends with someone who he had a falling out with, and he didn't like that, so he unfriended and blocked me on everything.
I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, it's.
You just won't tell him that you're a co-host or something.
Yeah, he wouldn't appreciate that. He's very strident when it comes to that sort of thing.
I just had an epiphany.
I mean, we could also get Ann Sturgeon on. She's a really good author I'm friends with.
Yeah. She's although not her and Goat at the same time, I would imagine.
Well, I think they're still friends, so I think that would be okay.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should try to find some of these people in the Civil Hall videos and get them on.
That's not a bad idea either. Yeah. That is not a bad idea. Who would we start with?
Yeah, uh, that's a pretty good question.
How about
Would be
Frank
interesting.
Rizzo? So he can call
Yeah,
us all crumb bums.
that was a pretty old clip. Is he even still alive?
Probably not. I wonder if George Forbes is still alive. The black guy who's like, one of these days, keep fucking with me. I'm gonna kick your ass. You hear me? I'm gonna kick your ass. Let's see if he's alive. He's 88 years old now, but I bet he could still whoop some ass. According to this, George Forbes is still alive. I wonder if we could get him.
Yeah.
Former
Yeah, and,
president of the Cleveland NAACP, semi-retired from practicing law. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say if we could maybe try to get some musicians on, because I'm thinking I did like at one point send an email to this musician who goes by the name Filmmaker, who I really like to do an interview, but I never heard back. I'm trying to think of what other musicians.
Who is it?
His name is Filmmaker. He makes these this sort of like dark 80s inspired synth pop that's really good.
Oh, I
And he's
love
actually
that stuff.
and he's
I
very
love
prolific.
what do you call it? Vaporwave or whatever. I love that stuff. Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, he's not really vaporwave though. He's more synthwave.
What's the difference?
Vaporwave, like it tends to be very sample heavy, very chopped and cut, very dreamy. Synthwave like actually goes out of its way to resemble like 80s pop music. Like a vaporwave pulls from like easy listening and smooth jazz and a lot of like taking like corporate music and appropriating it to something that's more artistically viable. And synthwave is just more like sort of like attempting to like imitate 80s synth pop.
So which one is like a band like Laserhawk?
Laserhawk is that one's definitely more synthwave.
Okay, well that's what I like then. Yeah, the stuff that sounds like it was right out of an 80s movie.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe the YouTuber Pad Chennington. He's like a very he's a YouTuber who does his channel is dedicated to vaporwave, synthwave, and things like that. He'd probably be interesting to have on to talk about that stuff.
Yep.
Wonder if we could ever get the Universal Harvester dude on. He may be out of our league.
Probably no. We could probably get him. He played in a punk rock band. I can't remember his name right now though.
John Darnielle, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
We could probably get him. Yeah. Who else? There was someone else I thought about. Well, I can't think of it, but yeah, we could get Nick Redfern on. Probably.
Is Carrie Hume still alive?
Who?
Carrie Hume.
I don't know who that is.
She wrote The Bone People.
I don't think I've heard of that, have I?
It's a Penguin classic, but it's like she only wrote one book. She's like super. I don't really know what the word would be. She doesn't like putting stuff out for some reason.
Oh, you know what I found out the other time? You remember that book that I hyped up at the beginning of the year, Ben, called Church Mouse, about the vampires?
Oh, I think I remember you telling me about that.
I found out that R.H. Hale wrote a sequel to that. I'm all over that as of this weekend. I apparently it's been out for most of the year. I just couldn't. I don't know why it's just showing itself to me now, but that and also Knuckle
Duster.
Yes, those are my two favorite vampire novels in the modern day. I mean, no, it was what the hell was it? Knuckle. I don't remember right now, but
I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, those two are the best takes on modern day vampires, I feel like. But Church Mouse really puts into perspective how someone who's thousands of years old would actually behave. They would be very moody, I guess, and they would also be able to anticipate behavior more. And it reflects that in the writing. So yeah, I think Church Mouse is miles above, tripe like True Blood and Twilight. But
Yeah, Chandler Morrison recently released a new vampire novel called Until the Sun, and that looks pretty interesting.
He was the dude, the Bizarro thing, right? Where
Yeah,
he got
that.
kicked out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the consensus seems to be now that he was kind of railroaded.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people who pride themselves on being, cutting edge and offensive and everything, and going to extremes of the Bizarro Showdown, are all of a sudden that a performance was so successful that it shocked them into ousting him from their little community. Think about that. They claimed that they never censored anybody. As soon as that happened, bam, you're excommunicated immediately if you cross this line or that line. Not to mention that it became a trend for every female in that community to cry, some type of abuse or harassment.
I mean, to be fair, it did seem like that was the case, that there was like some unresolved issues with that, and Chandler Morrison's was kind of like I don't know, the straw that broke the camel's back, so it was kind of misdirected at him. At least that's my understanding of what I've read of the whole situation.
I tried to be fair with them, but they didn't want to play, so tough shit for them. But it didn't seem like that was the case with that Scott guy. Strange laid the whole thing out. Brian Keene lied about being there and witnessing it. So I mean, they have never, they will never apologize. They will never humble themselves, in the way that they should as, all around decent, moral encompassing human beings. But I have reached out and apologized to certain individuals in that community finally. But I wouldn't expect the same from them because they don't have it in them to scrutinize their own behavior in that way. So, but I mean, when you've got every female in a community crying "Me Too," there is got to be a percentage that is lying. That Scott Gomez kid, man, it sounded like he wasn't that familiar with female communication, and he was just awkward by design. And Constance was looking for someone to nail as her harasser, and she got it. He was an easy target. But this is all so far in the past. I don't even know why I'm bringing it up. But maybe to fill time, I guess. How did we get onto this? How did we get onto this? Guests or something?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about vampire novels, and I mentioned Chandler Morrison, which I think from what I've seen, his work looks really interesting. I've read some of his short stories, and I actually quite like them. But unfortunately, he's still kind of got that reputation as the guy that caused the stink at the Bizarro Con.
I said we could get Vincenzo on. Y'all think that'd be a good idea?
No, well, 2 years ago I would say yes, but for some reason he blocked me, so I don't know. I think he's washed his hands of the whole thing. He did sell Bizarro Pulp Press, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if he sold it, but I know Nicholas Day and someone else took over as the editors.
Yeah, whatever. I know who too. And it almost seems, Zach, like they are lowballing you on your sales. As Strange pointed out on that one podcast, have you confronted them about that?
I've honestly just not kept that much involvement.
Just don't care?
I don't care. I'm not really sure that would be the case. I don't believe that.
Oh.
Granted, I probably, haven't. It's not a well-known book to begin with, so I don't think that they've messed with it. But
why is the hard copy, the physical paperback, cheaper than the Kindle version? That's
It's strange.
normal.
I don't know. I
That
don't
is
have
not
an
normal,
answer for that.
Yeah.
If I, but
yeah,
I don't. But it
that
was
does
like
happen
that before
sometimes.
Vincenzo
Now,
too. So
when
I
does
don't think it was them.
I'm cool with Vincenzo personally. I just don't know if he's cool with me. But if either of you want to approach him, and whatever, that's fine. But I somehow,
Yeah, I talk to him semi-frequently.
do you? I have a feeling that he's done with that whole publishing thing as a whole. I could be wrong, but
I think he is. A lot of us are just really bizarro. It's the same people going to different. I mean, it's everyone knows it. It's not a thing you can really grow in. It's very closed off, in my opinion.
here's
And
here's my take. Here's my take after much reflection, and I will always be down with Kevin Donaghy, who was nothing but accepting, and I was flattered to have known him in the time that I had discovered that he lived in my town, which was an amazing feeling to know that he was just right in the same town as me. At the end, I found out in his author bio at the end of a book he wrote he lives in Kingsport, Tennessee. I'm like, oh, I live there too. But my take now is that you have these people who conjured up a way to express themselves uniquely and make money off it and market it in such a way that it could make money. But it was on the West Coast, a very long distance from here. Now, how should something in Oregon affect me here? And it made me realize it doesn't. I got to find my own path. And it's incredibly slow going at a snail's pace. But as long as I don't talk about what I'm writing, I find I get more done. But yeah, I've got to start my own thing here in bumfuck Tennessee and be happy with that instead of trying to chase someone else's gig. That's what I was doing.
Yeah,
But
I've gotten to that point like where when I was first starting out with writing, it's like I used to check my email every day to see if I've gotten an acceptance or rejection, and now it's just like I never check. Like I've just stopped. Like I've gotten to that point where I don't really care. And like I said before, it's like if the next book I write doesn't sell, I would just self-publish it. Whereas before I was like, that's not an option. You can do better. But I've seen that it's not all a sham. It's all for personal expression and having all these systems and, as I said earlier, cabals set up. It just sort of it can murder the soul of a piece.
Mhm.
Especially because like beforehand, it's like you'll be writing to sell, and that murders it like right off the bat.
In some ways, I think the elevator pitch can ruin creativity
100%.
because you're putting all that effort into a synopsis, and then you have to, if the more outlandish you make it, the more you have to try and make it fit in a story. It's better to let a story develop and breathe on its own, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how I work. Like everything I've written so far, it's like there's no outline or anything like that. I just sit down and write it from beginning to end and kind of let it develop on its own.
It's like
That's how I've always done it. But recently I've outlined a little bit, but it's mainly it develops on its own with the guidance of the outline.
Yeah, it's like George R. R. Martin said, sometimes his characters will develop a mind of their own and do exactly the opposite of what he wants them to do in order to further the plot. And like what's her name? Catelyn Stark, the mother Stark in Game of Thrones. She was more active in supporting Rob's army than just being a messenger. She would deliver messages herself, and that was against his original plans, where she would kind of be in the background because, as a mother, and a character she developed on her own without, him planning her that way. And it's good when characters and plots take you by surprise like that. They develop lives of their own because you didn't try to cram it all into an elevator pitch. Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for me, like the elevator pitch is like the closest thing to an outline I have. I generally come up with the idea and the like the basic premise of it. Like the next book I plan on working on is a pirate book, and like I have the basic idea of it. I did like a little bit of research on pirating to kind of help develop it, but like I have an idea of like the beginning and the end of it, and like I'm not really sure of what is going to go on in the middle. That's the part I want to kind of let develop on its own.
The way I get ideas, it's never like a synopsis. It's always just an image.
Yeah, the way I came up with my the book that I have coming out through Addle Press is kind of I guess kind of odd. It was inspired. It's inspired and named after an ABBA song, actually. Because I heard that song a few times and I got an idea to like develop a story around it. And what got me to come up with a major part of it, which is it takes place in a town called Elaine, and almost every woman in the town is named Elaine, is because when I went to look up information about the song, because it's a weirdly kind of dark song. It's like nobody really commented on how on how oddly dark the lyrics were. They would just say things like, "Oh, I like this song because my name is Elaine," and that's where I got that idea of like this town where like nearly every woman is named Elaine.
Yeah. Well, do we have anything else on board, or do we want to end it there? I don't know.
I don't have anything other than Epstein didn't kill himself.
That's a great note to wrap on. Yeah.
Yeah, and never forget how fast they're trying to rub that out.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, I have a book coming out through Addle Press next year, so buy it when it comes out.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you get it? Did you happen to read Neon Dies at Dawn by Prunty Anderson?
Oh,
Prunty?
Yeah, I did. That's a really great book. I love that a lot.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Good stuff about a guy who kidnaps a woman who's related to his son's murderer, if I recall right.
Yeah, his daughter.
Yeah, and good book, yeah. Especially the part with the mailbox. I didn't know what I was reading in that scene, you know. Whoa.
Yeah, well, that part I was just like, oh, holy crap.
Yeah, well, I mean, which is
I didn't expect him to go there.
Which is it? You know, I can't tell. Is it really that abstract what he saw? I mean,
yeah, okay, spoiler if you haven't read Neon Dies at Dawn, but the thing he finds in his mailbox is he says that it's the body of his baby. I can't remember if it's his grandson or his nephew, his baby nephew's body, and apparently it's like ridiculously mutilated. But when a cop,
it's a cat or something, right?
Yeah, the police come over and they they tell him like, oh, it's the body of a cat, and it's kind of implied that well, not really. It's practically explicit that the cop is only doing that because the drug dealer has such a grip on the town that he pretty much does whatever the fuck he wants. And so the cop is just like knows that the baby was murdered, so he's saying, yeah, it was a skinned cat or something like that. And then after that,
well, or Prunty could have been pulling a Bret Easton Ellis in American Psycho, a type deal where he hallucinated that.
True, because the part with the part with the carnival at the end is a little weird, so you could almost imagine that being kind of hallucinated. At the same time, it doesn't seem like that's where he went with it. And not to mention the follow up with that, where what he does with the body is that's just that actually made me gag a little when I read it.
I guess we'll leave it at that. My only advice this week is you only live once, so sprinkle crunch berries on vanilla ice cream. Trust me, do it. We're
Sounds
out.
like good advice. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
See.